On this week's episode of Nosebleed Radio, we have former Nebraska offensive lineman and pizza proprietor Matt Vrzal. Before we get started, I have a quick story to tell.
Let's hear it, Tuck.
Today I woke up late because my iPhone charger broke, so my alarm never went off in the morning.
Damn it.
I was already off to a bad start, and I needed to grab some breakfast in a hurry, so I grabbed some orange juice, but then I spilled it everywhere.
Oh, no!
And I had no paper towels to clean it up. I was frustrated, and I thought I'd just grab one of those delicious Cliff Bars and get on my way. But wouldn't you know it, I was out of them.
No!
Don't let your morning start this way. Go to the link in our description to purchase a new iPhone Lightning charger, some paper towels, and a box of Cliff Bars.
I will.
We are now an Amazon affiliate, so if you want to support us, here's an easy way to do it. You're already going to buy these products anyways, so you might as well help out some poor college kids run a podcast at the same time. Roll the music.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
You're listening to Nosebleed Radio. Here's your host, Tucker Franklin.
What is up? Episode 9 of Nosebleed Radio is live, and I'm here with the boys. You already know it. Kieran Brennan.
How's it going?
Toby Dad.
What's up?
And Shane Miller.
Hey, how's it going, Roll Hawks?
Episode number 9. You know what that means. Famous number 9s. Who's going to start it?
I'll go first with Taylor Hall. He's currently killing it for the New Jersey Devils, my favorite hockey team. As I said earlier, it's going to be the Devils' year this year. We're going to win the championship in 6 games. Stanley Cup. Cup's coming back to Jersey, so he's going to be leading the charge for us along with Nico Hischier, who will probably be my number 13 when we get to episode 13. So be on the lookout for that in a few weeks.
I'll go next. My number 9. I actually have an actual number 9 and the one that's a little bit of a stretch. I'll go with my second favorite player on my favorite basketball team with Andre Iguodala. And then my second one, I'm going to go with World Series hero So Taguchi. He was number 99, so that's double trouble.
I've got, as is customary, a former Boston Celtic, Rajon Rondo. He was on those great championship teams. Got some beef to settle with the rest of the Celtics. But on this sad, sad day for all Celtics fans, a little joy in remembering Rajon Rondo with episode number 9. I've also got one of my favorite NFL quarterbacks, not Drew Brees, Matthew Stafford of the Detroit Lions. He's got a cannon, and he's not afraid to use it. I like the gunslingers. Tuck?
My favorite number 9 is the greatest hitter in MLB history, Drew Butera. And also I have Ted Williams as my other favorite number 9. We had a national championship since the last time we spoke. Toby's Michigan Wolverines got railroaded by the Villanova Wildcats. They're just unconscious from downtown.
The better team won, and that's pretty much all I have to say about the game. Like, they were the best team all season. Even when Virginia was getting all the number 1 looks, you knew that going into the tournament, Villanova was probably going to be favored over Virginia in a lot of people's minds, and they proved it all tournament. So congrats to them, but I'm still proud of, the Michigan team, and we had a good run. We shut down the National Player of the Year that entire game, got them in foul trouble, and it just so happened that they had their 6th man off the bench score 31 points. Unfortunate game, but, good game. Congrats to Villanova, for sure.
So you're not going to name your kid Dante anymore?
Not a chance, and I'm not going to actually mention him by name anymore either, so.
That's fair.
You shall not be named. So do you think it was unfair that this game was played so close to Easter, since it was, a Catholic school? Do you think that gave them a little advantage coming into it?
Not really. The day before Easter, it's all the events to Easter leading up to it. There was Good Friday. Sandwiched in between there was Sister Jean's Loyola squad going up against that Michigan team. In the first half, I don't know, maybe it was God keeping the ball out of the basket for Michigan, but, in the second half when they got it turned around, beat Loyola, I really thought, all right. So Easter's come early for the Wolverines at least, so hopefully they can stave off the old Catholic wave going on. Being so close to Easter, running the tournament all through Lent, and we just didn't get it done, I guess they celebrate Easter a little bit later in Philadelphia, so what can you do? They're still celebrating that Super Bowl win, by the way. They greased the light poles. I think the light poles already had grease on them, before the city had to put up anything, so I hate the city of Philadelphia now. That's my takeaway from March Madness. I despise Philadelphia. I hate Rocky. I'm going to cheer for the bad guy in every movie from now on I'm watching. Go Drago.
We're no longer friends anymore. I don't know if I can hang out with anyone who hates Rocky.
I feel like God might have had a hand in this one because you Catholics, or us Catholics, we had a very good March Madness with Villanova winning, and then Notre Dame.
Women's championship. Yeah.
Hail Notre Dame, just killing it, just upsetting the dynasty in UConn and the dynasty in Mississippi State. So just like, I don't know, go Catholics.
This
right?
is an up year for Catholics. Yeah. Good job, guys.
Who's back? Catholics.
Catholics are back.
We're going to do a little bit of Masters talk here, moving on from the national championship. Some notable scores so far through the first round of play. Tiger was 3 over. Jordan Spieth, 6 under. He's pretty good at this tournament, if you remember. He's pretty good. Tony Finau, 4 under. And Kieran and I were actually watching that par 3 contest when he completely dislocated his ankle. He had to pop it back in.
It's a football guy move.
That is a total football guy move. I don't know if you guys watched. Did you guys watch any of the Masters?
Yeah, we saw that. Yeah.
I napped through a lot of the Masters.
I dozed in and out. That's how you watch golf, though.
That's the best way to watch golf. I remember when I was a kid, my dad would always put on golf tournaments like the Masters, and just immediately unconscious. Like that, something about like the whispered voices, and I don't know, the slow play of the sport is it's so easy to fall asleep. Yeah.
My favorite thing about when dads do that is they'll fall asleep immediately, and then you go and change the channel, and they'll be like, "Hey, I was watching that. I was paying attention the whole time."
Yeah, and I think golf is a great sport for father-son moments. We saw a lot of that from the par 3 contest. You know, before the actual Masters got started, we saw Jack Nicklaus, and I know he's an Ohio guy, but I'm going to brag on him for a little bit. One of the greatest golfers of all time. His grandson, was it?
Yes, his grandson.
Sunk the hole-in-one right before Kieran said Gary Player's grandson smashed one into the gallery.
Yeah. Another big story, Sergio Garcia, the winner last year, hit 5 into the water for the highest score in event history, hit a 13.
He's got a high score, though. I mean, that's pretty cool, right?
He does have a high score. Not the same in golf, but he now has a high score. Jordan Spieth has the lead after day 1 with a 6 under score, like I mentioned earlier. He's had a lot of success at Augusta National. He has his fair share of top 5 finishes at Augusta, with 3 of them since 2014. He hasn't collected PGA Tour this year, but has 3 top 10 finishes. Don't be surprised if this is his first one this year. He's the number 4 ranked golfer in the world, and this will probably be his second Masters, is what I think. I did say Justin Thomas in my blog that I think is going to win. He looked really good today. He was wearing a little sweater vest, the Titleist vest. That's a good look.
Yeah, I think that makes him more of a lock for the win. I think the way you dress really influences how you play in golf.
He looked good today.
Gotta look good to play good.
I was excited to see the vest. Justin Thomas, Ricky Fowler, and Jordan Spieth all did the par 3 contest together, and they all mic'd him up. And we talked about on a couple episodes back on who you want to spend spring break with. They are a group of guys I'd love to spend spring break with, because Justin Thomas is actually sponsored by Natty Light.
Weren't they that group of guys who took a big trip together a few years back?
And
was that them?
Along with Smiley, Kaufman, and
yeah, that trip was wild.
And they were golfing with no shoes on, no shirts, just in their swimming trunks. Just they were shooting below par too, like that. So those guys it'd be so much fun to go on a trip with those guys, because they seem like they always have a good time golfing, and that's when you're golfing. That's what you try to do, is have a good time.
You know what I don't like about golf, though? I don't like that you're not allowed to heckle the golfers when you're there. That's the best part about being a sports fan, is heckling players. If you yell dilly dilly or whatever, now you get kicked out immediately. That's so dumb. If you're a professional athlete, you should be able to handle people trying to get in your head. That's the whole point of being professional. Can you imagine Kyrie Irving turning around and yelling "Stop talking to me while I'm shooting free throws"? That's the most ridiculous thing ever.
Was it Jordan Spieth who had somebody kicked out because they told his ball not to get in the hole? Or who was it that had somebody get kicked out? There was a fan who said, "Don't get in the hole," when he was hitting a shot. And the golfer turned around and said, "You're out of here. Your day's done."
Golfers are really fragile people, though, because do you remember when Tiger Woods would almost fight photographers for taking a picture in his backswing? He would hear that camera click, and he'd stop and he's like, "Who was it? Let's go."
Yeah, seriously, is that little click really gonna mess with your mind so much that you can't follow through on the swing? I just don't understand. I guess I'm not playing golf at that high of a level, or at any level to begin with, but I can't imagine being a professional athlete and that's got to be almost muscle memory at some point. After hitting so many golf balls, you've got to be able to play through that, I would think.
Golf is a very concentration heavy game, and you have to basically concentrate. You're concentrating for 2.5 to 3 hours, so it's very intense. And I think that if you break that concentration, it's really a mental game more than it is physical.
Yeah, I know. Tucker played golf in high school. I didn't play golf, in high school, but I go up to Top Golf sometimes, and even when you just step up there, when it's your turn to go hit, you don't really like it hearing people behind you It kind of does throw you off. A lot of it's similar as, a crowd making noise when a pitcher is getting ready to throw a pitch to try to distract the batter, because you have to be so focused, so concentrated on whatever it is you're swinging at. And you really want to, make solid contact with it every time. Any little hitch in the giddy up could throw the swing completely off. And I think that golfers, while, yes, coming off a little bit fragile sometimes, especially in the treatment of, fans and media, they also have, a reason. It's reasonable for them to be all right, this is the biggest tournament of the year. I want to get everything right. So I don't necessarily disapprove of that, but
you don't see baseball players kicking out fans because they're yelling at them while they're at the plate. I think that's the difference, is that golfers will turn and kick out fans who paid a lot of money to come watch them play for distracting them, I guess.
Like you said, it's all mentality. You'd think that guys who play in such a concentration-heavy sport would have stronger mentalities, because they're not going to break your concentration unless you let them break your concentration. So a little camera shutter, somebody saying something, there's no reason that should break your concentration, especially when you're only swinging the club below 70 times a day,
on a good day.
Hopefully. We're going to go ahead and talk a little bit of MLB. Last time it was opening day when we were recording. Got some series behind us. We're playing some new teams now, our teams are. So one of the big stories was Charlie Blackmon signing a 6-year deal with Colorado.
Charlie African-American, man.
I'm sorry. PC. This is PC. What are your thoughts on Charlie Blackmon?
He's a stud. I think he's worth the money. I think what he's shown you the last 2 seasons really in Colorado makes him worth all the money that the Rockies are going to throw at him. And I think it's important for the Rockies as an organization to try to re-sign as many of these bats as they can, because Lord knows they need help with the pitching staff. But if you can keep the young bats with them while they've got them, then I think maybe they have a chance to do something.
The thing I like about this contract is, like Toby said, Blackman's a stud both offensively, defensively. He gives you speed out of the leadoff spot. But the deal that it is, 6 years and $106 million, that's a long term for not a lot of money. But that contract has great trade value, because if he starts to decline in, a year or two, you could trade him and still teams will still get a very good center fielder for not that much money, and it gives them something to work around, Do
you think there's a beard clause in his contract? He has to keep a certain length beard, otherwise they will take some money out of his contract or something? I think a lot of people, you want to see the beard. So if he shaves, I don't know if you get as many people in the seats coming to watch just an African-American play with no beard.
That's probably where Brian Wilson's career started to decline, and that's why you see James Harden never shaving, is because it's just I don't want to break the mojo. Baseball players are very superstitious people, so if he's been playing good since he's had this beard, there's not a snowball's chance in hell he's shaving that.
No, and we were on the subject of Catholicism earlier, so I'm going to take it back to a Bible verse and talk about Samson. Remember they cut his hair? He used to be the strong man, cut his hair, and then he was real weak. I think a lot of that's the same for athletes. They got the beard. Kiesel, he had the long hair going too when he was over in Pittsburgh, and he thought that was good luck. And as soon as they got rid of that, the career started to decline a little bit. I agree with Kieran. I think that Blackmon needs to keep the beard, and I think that as long as he's got that beard, he's going to be playing just fine.
Plus, baseball players look for slump busters. I know, you hear the stories of this player changed his batting stance the tiniest amount. He moved his front foot back 0.5 inches to help fix a slump. All he's got to do is shave his beard if he starts to slump. That's the easiest adjustment a person can make.
It's already the second week of the season, and Yankees fans already booing Stanton. Doesn't make any sense to me. Dude's got a lot of strikeouts, though. He either hits a home run or he strikes out.
Yeah, he went 0 for 5 in that one game, all strikeouts. That's no bueno.
What's that one? Is that Golden Sombrero's 4? What's the 5th one? We were trying to figure this out the other day, and we couldn't think of it.
A real shitty day.
Yeah, I don't even know if they have a name for that, because that's just almost unfathomable. I feel like I'm the only other person that's done that before.
How about the fickleness of fan bases? Because the very next day, first at bat, he gets up there, he hits one 458 feet or whatever it was, and the fans go wild for him like they can't remember what happened last night when they booed him. So Tuck, he wrote a blog about this. Go check out Tuck's blog post about this. But Yankees fans, and I think a lot of fans up in the Northeast, are just insufferable when it comes to moments like that with players. Very little patience, not really giving them time to work out. And you have to remember the season's 162 games long. One bad day and you're booing the guy in his home opener, no less.
Right.
Absurd.
So I just looked up what it was when you strike out 5 times It's either you can call it the Olympic rings, which is clever.
Ooh, okay.
5 rings, I like that one, or the platinum sombrero.
Ah, okay, just a little bit heavier sombrero to wear in shame.
Yeah,
Shamebrero.
you're getting shamed no matter what. I don't think Olympic rings is very shaming though.
If you don't come back with a medal, it is.
Oh, good point.
I feel like baseball players nowadays, like Giancarlo Stanton struck out 5 times. I feel like more baseball players are willing to have an increased amount of strikeouts if it also results in an increased amount of home runs, because Giancarlo Stanton had that. You can look at players like Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge had so many strikeouts last year, but he hit, 50 home runs, so nobody gave it a crap. Mark Reynolds, whenever he was in the majors, struck out every other at-bat, but he hit 45 bombs a year, so people were like, okay, we'll put up with Mark. So it's just like, he's going to strike out 5 times, but like he was going to strike out that many times anyway, so he just got them all out of the way up front. He's just spacing them out next time.
True, and there's a lot of strikeout pitchers in that division. I mean, I think they forget the guy who was pitching that day was 4th in the American League last year in strikeouts, Chris Archer for the Rays. And so there's a lot of guys now, pitchers who don't pitch to contact. They pitch for swings and misses. Guys are swinging for the fences. We saw the increase in home run numbers last year. So there's a lot that goes into it from both sides, pitching and hitting, that's going to lead to increased strikeouts. I mean, even the best player in baseball, Mike Trout, he, increased strikeout numbers. But you live with it because the production that he gets you when they make contact with the ball outweighs what they do when they're swinging and missing. I think Yankees fans, that you can get a little anxious at games. You see your guy who you brought in to be just otherworldly, lead you to the World Series and the greatness that the Bronx Bombers brought you back in the day, and you see him go 0-for-5 with 5 strikeouts. Like, you overreact a little bit, and I think there's just a lot of fans in the MLB who just – they see one bad outing, they overreact, forgetting this is the longest season in all of sports. So. And
I told Shane this earlier, baseball is not a perfect game. It's hard to throw a perfect game. It doesn't happen every time, and people expect you to get a hit every single time you're at bat. That just doesn't happen. Baseball's meant not to be perfect, and I think that Stanton and Judge are going to be the first 2 teammates that combine for 400 strikeouts, because both of those guys are going to hit a home run or they're going to strike out.
Speaking of annoying fan bases, do you guys want to talk at all about the Phillies fans booing their manager, Gabe Kapler, as soon as he walked on the field? I assumed that Phillies fans were going to be, better people now that they had won some championships. I kind of assumed more of the hatred for all their sports teams was from having such terrible luck for the past, 1,000 years. But I think they're just getting greedy at this point. They want to have an amazing baseball team now, too, because they had a Super Bowl champion and Villanova win the national championship, too. So I don't know. I don't know why I'm shocked they booed him. I guess I just expected them to act better, but that's Philly, so I guess I shouldn't have expected more.
I mean, they booed Santa, so their bar for booing people is rather pretty low. But I feel like Philly fans, it's like becoming a Coke addict. Like they got that championship, and they're like, oh my gosh, we got another one. Oh my gosh, I just keep wanting more and more and more. And so the Phillies are what? They have a losing record, but we're 6 games into the season, and they're like, this isn't perfection. This isn't what we expected. Come on, guys.
The one thing that I like about Philadelphia right now is this incident, because they're not letting tradition escape them of being classless, low-life fans that boo every time they get the opportunity. And so I'm glad to see that part hasn't escaped Philadelphia. I wish the losing ways would return, for the Sixers playoff run. Phillies, you can go ahead and do whatever. The Nationals are taking the NL East. But it's good to see that the boo birds are still out and about in Philadelphia.
To be fair, though, I can understand why they might boo Santa. I'm pretty sure most Philly fans have gotten coal in their stockings for the last 40 years, straight. I don't know if Santa's given any presents away in Philadelphia.
Logan Paul did Santa. He's got a diss track out.
Good point. Anti-Philadelphia podcast.
Oh, I'll declare
Anti-Logan Paul podcast.
Anti-Philadelphia, anti-Logan Paul. Yeah, what else?
To be fair, I do like the city of Philadelphia, like the historical stuff there. That's all good.
I've seen National Treasure.
I also watched National Treasure. That's a good movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
I don't know. Even their most famous artifact has a crack in it, so that tells you anything about Philadelphia.
We're going to go ahead and move into our interview with former Nebraska offensive lineman and pizza proprietor Matt Vrzal. This interview is brought to you by Paisan's Pizza. For great tasting pizza with the most boss sauce, stop into Paisan's on 156 in Center in Omaha, Nebraska. Not only do they have great pizza, but fantastic pastas, sandwiches, wings, and other appetizers. Make sure to give it a try next time you're in the mood for some great tasting food. We're here with former Nebraska offensive lineman and pizza proprietor, Matt Vrzal. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm doing good, boys. How are you?
Doing good.
Pretty good.
How's the pizza business going?
Good. Pizza business is good, man. It's growing. With Paison's Pizzeria here in Omaha, we seem to grow every day, and if I had any more hair to lose, I'd have lost it by now. But yeah,
I'd say you're about to lose eyebrows now is what you're going to do next.
Yeah. Hopefully someday it'd be the back hair, but that just hangs on too good.
So with baseball starting up, what do you think about the Cubs season so far?
Well, buddy, it's a little disheartening. I leave for Chicago on Sunday for my first vacation in a year, so I'm super stoked for that.
Yeah.
It's a long season. Baseball is a marathon, and you got to survive. You're just trying to survive till about June, July, and then go from there and see what happens.
So you're saying you haven't given up on the season yet? Because if I were you, I would have. No. They got too many good players not to. It's nice. It's been in Theo we trust. So it is his league after all. True.
Yeah, what do you think about the signing of Darvish?
The thing with Darvish, I think they got him at a little bit of a value. They paid about $5 million less a year than people thought they should. Now, if they get to the postseason and he doesn't amount to much, then we got other problems. But it's a long way to go, and there's a lot of seasons. So I'm happy that they kind of bolstered that rotation and then can hopefully get some bullpen help as well.
Are you a little sad now that you can't blame the Cubs' troubles on a goat from like 100 years ago? Or you still?
No. You know me well enough. I don't make too many excuses. The only thing I blamed them for was playing terrible baseball for a while there. So it's nice to see them good, and 10 and 11-year-old Matt Vrzal is freaking stoked because his team is finally relevant in baseball.
That's a good point.
What did you think about the whole Bartman ordeal? What do you think? Like, the Cubs started to try to reach out to him. Do you think that the Cubs should try to make amends with him?
I do. And that thing, if you ever wonder the power of media and the way you can spin a message, you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody that wasn't going to reach for that baseball. Like, to have the wits about yourself to just hold everybody back and not try to grab that is crazy. Right. Moises Alou freaking out after that, and then Alex Rodriguez, his error was something I was more concerned about. Like, hey, why is nobody blaming the shortstop that's getting paid millions of dollars a year, not fielding a simple ground ball and turning two?
Yeah.
But everybody's got to have somebody to blame for something, right?
That's true. Absolutely. Everybody's got an excuse. So I really wanted to get into more like Nebraska stuff here. So we just want to ask you, what was it like playing for Coach Osborne when you were back in the day?
I'm just worried more why you guys are slumming today. I mean, you got Heisman Trophy winner Eric Crouch on your show, and now you're to a backup center. Like, have the ratings fallen off that much?
Anytime we can talk about Nebraska football is a good day for me, though. So,
I mean, I figured I'm probably third in line behind Isaiah Ramsey. Like, I heard you guys do a good job. Coach Osborne it was really cool to be there at that time. I learned so much more from him about probably life than I ever did about football, and that just means hard work and all that, all the cliches that come into it.
Sure.
But he prepared us to be men first, and then football players second. So that was it's something I try to take away. I get the opportunity to coach fine, upstanding young men like Shane Miller at Omaha Scott Catholic every year. And it's just something I can see little bits and pieces of him every day that I get to coach. Playing
under Coach Osborne, do you see a lot of him? What about like your high school coaches? Do they have any influence on how you coach now at Scott Catholic?
I would say early in my career, I coached a little bit more like my high school coach, who was a yeller screamer, Ken Fisher, a storied guy in the state of Nebraska for football. And I've matured over the years. You guys, now I'm a much more mild-mannered version of myself, and I did probably pull some things from Coach Osborne that nothing I say on game day, no rah-rah speech, no bash my head against the wall talk is going to make you know any more about what we're trying to do in the game. Mm-hmm. So I try to focus a little more on the full week of preparation and get all that stuff in and get guys ready to go that way. And then, everybody's got to find their own motivation to play. I can't make you play hard. You have to want to go do that.
Sure. I'm still waiting to see that mild-mannered guy show up sometime, but
I get now. I didn't say it wasn't intense.
Yeah.
I said it just. Oh yeah, this is about Vrzal on level 4, which you guys
Yeah.
are getting. You should have seen it at 10.
So you mentioned that you played center at Nebraska, and it also says you played guard as well. What was your favorite center or guard?
That's a tough one because they're both fun. At the center position at Nebraska in the 90s, you were the guy that controlled the whole setup. So you had to make calls and you got it. So it's always I caught when I played baseball as well, and all my coaches in baseball were catchers. So I called games since I was 10 years old. But it was probably more fun mentally at center, more fun displaying your talents at guard because we pulled a lot. You know, you're out in space and you could cut guys, and you could, it's a little easier to run your mouth when there's somebody directly over you being a 3 technique. You tell them, hey, it's going to be a bad day for you today.
Yeah.
I had heard, I don't know if this is true or not, but I had heard stories about like the 90s Nebraska teams where the linemen would just line up and tell the guys, hey, we're running up the 2-hole here, try and stop it. Was that true? Is there any truth to that?
That is 100% true.
That's
in
so
the 97,
awesome.
in the 97 national championship game, there was a guy by the name of Matt Hoskinson. He would tell Leonard Little when they were going to run right at him, and then they'd get like 6 or 8 yards, and then he'd tell Leonard, he's like, Leonard, I don't know what else I can do for you. I told you the play was coming this way. I'm trying to help you.
So
I'm trying to make it look better for you. So we were all a bunch of kind of overweight smartasses, and that was probably what made us good and made us fun to be around.
Yeah, I think that attitude really helps out. Was there ever a type of, like, playing on a team with that caliber, was there ever a game you walked into where you're like, man, I don't know if we got to this game, or you always have that, like, attitude where we're going to kick their ass,
The only game, and this will be kind of revisionist history, but the only game I didn't really feel confident when we walked on the field was Arizona State, because the year before, a scrawny little quarterback from Wahoo, Newman, had made a read in that game, and his audible was to check to, I believe it was a post, and he hit Lance Brown for a touchdown, and that put the game at like 77-14. And that quarterback's name was Matt Turman, and they were super, super pissed after that game. Like, they were mad. Like, coaches wanted to fight, and I was like, oh, man, this is bad. So fast forward into 96, you got the new quarterback, Scott Frost. Everybody's kind of trying to find their bearings, and I didn't – that just had a bad feel to it. That would have been the only time in my 5 years of college that I didn't think when we took the field we were going to win.
Do you ever blame Turman for that? Do you ever talk to him about that at all?
No, it's like Coach Osborne said in the post-game presser. He said, listen, we don't train our third-team quarterback to go in and take a knee. Like, he's there to make reads, or second-team quarterback. He's there to make reads. He's there to do his job. So if they don't like it, I'm sorry, but our kids are going to all be prepared to succeed. And if their defense can't make that adjustment, then, oh well. People probably need to take that philosophy more in life. Like, if you don't like it, stop it.
Yeah.
We got mud-holed last year in the championship game by York, and everybody's like, oh, you pissed? I'm like, no, we couldn't do anything to move the ball offensively. It's our fault, or it's my fault.
Yeah.
The offensive line didn't do their job, so it never gets usually past the finger for me. It's usually the thumb where the blame lies.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Well, I stole it from Pelini.
Yeah.
So what was it like playing in the national championship? Did you get any, like, cool gifts or anything? They give you anything for doing that?
The swag bags were always nice. It's nowhere near what it is today. There was some video or some picture of Coach Osborne in his Adidas jacket from, I think, 96.
Yeah, I saw that.
I got this Apex. Like, I have so many windsuits that if I ever decide to become a track athlete, like, I am set. But one of them is gold, teal, maroon, and blue.
Wow.
And, I mean, it is, like, I could be like a late 70s, early 80s rapper if I really don that baby out and got me a big old gold rope chain. I'd be set.
It's pretty fly for a white guy.
Yeah, for sure. But the rings and the watches and all that stuff is always cool, and to look back at it now. But no, we weren't getting like PS4s or PS9s or whatever they are and TVs and stuff like that. We got like honestly, for the Orange Bowl, we were in 4 Orange Bowls while I was at Nebraska, one Fiesta Bowl. And every year they would give you an Orange Bowl jock. 1995
Really?
Orange Bowl. And I'm like,
nice.
What do you do with this? And so then you come home and you're like, and people are like, hey, did you get one of those Orange Bowl jocks? I'm like, yeah. They're like, can I buy it from you? I'm like, sure. I'm like,
slightly
we
used.
didn't wear these. Like, yeah, we know. We just think it's hilarious. I'm like, all right, go ahead, here you go.
That's pretty
awesome.
Oh yeah.
So we also saw when we were looking at some stats from you, that you were honorable mention All Academic Big 12 recipients and on the honor roll a couple of times. So were you just like a nerd in college, or
Kind of another kind of thing I hang my hat on in football is that the offensive linemen are easily the smartest people on the team, and of the group of linemen, I was kind of mid-pack. Like, you had the genetic lottery winner Rob Zaska and John Zaska, for that matter. Rob, when he graduated college, I think had $250,000 in postgraduate scholarships.
Oh.
He was 6'5", 6'4", probably 290, maybe around 12% body fat, and you're just like, dude, like, I'm 6'1", I weigh 333, like, what the hell? Like, get some over here. But yeah, I was always a good student, and school was, most of the time, was easy for me. I like math, and I tested out in Spanish in college, so it was pretty cool.
That's cool.
But yeah, I was just a little nerdy. I was the cool nerd jock guy, Shane.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah. Just take them all. Yeah.
A hybrid, like a hybrid.
I got voted Mr. Islander at Grand Island Senior High School. Not a big deal.
Not to brag.
Yeah, that's what I do.
So playing on those Nebraska teams, we asked Eric Crouch this too. What was one of your least favorite teams to play against?
I had a bad run in college. Like, I must have been seen as an easy to hit target. So when we went and played K-State one year, Brendan Stye looked at me and said, "Hey, whatever you do, don't take your helmet off." I was like, okay. So we're walking, and when at old K-State, you had to walk out of the locker room and you walk through their crowd kind of to get to the field. So I got my helmet on and I'm walking out there. All of a sudden, I feel this like warm sensation trickling down my back, and I look back and Stye's got this guy like kind of pinned up against another guy by the throat, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? And he goes, "That dude broke a fifth of Jim Beam over your helmet." I was like, is that why my back is all like kind of tingly? You know, you spill alcohol on yourself. Not that you guys are 21, you wouldn't know that.
No, I am. I know now. Yeah.
It was a little tingly. I'm like, man. So then I go in the locker room at halftime and I smell like booze. So everybody's like, Verse? I'm like, yeah, it's a long story. At Iowa State, I got hit in the head in the helmet with a battery, a D battery. Missouri, I couldn't confirm it, but I'm pretty sure I got hit with a urine bomb.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
They're big on that in
Colorado, we just had a lot of fun with because they were decent. They weren't that good, but they would talk, and their fans were like 6 foot from you.
Oh,
So
yeah.
anytime I can get into some passive aggressive jabs, and they were taking some pretty good shots at me because it was kind of getting toward the time. Like, hey, Vrzal, you might get in now. And so when I went in the game, I gave him a thumbs up. But no, it was those squads were just good. And to walk on there, and you knew you were renting space in their head before the game even started. It's just like, yeah, we got you. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah. Do you still keep in contact with some of your old teammates, like other than Coach Terman, who obviously you see all the time, but any of the other guys you still keep in contact with a lot?
Yeah, I try to stay. I'm kind of I'm a social guy. I think, Shane, you'll know that, owning restaurants for 15 years and bars for 15 years. I like people. So I'm in contact with guys from the 70s through to some of the 2000s. I just talked to Jared Thomas the other day, which was good to catch up with Jared.
Yeah.
I try to check in on Jason Peter every now and then, make sure he's all right.
Yeah.
I do some radio here in town in Omaha, so I see Damon Benning. Clinton Childs was at the shop the other day, so it's good to catch up with them. So, yeah, I keep in touch with a lot of guys. They're just, they say football is a brotherhood and da-da-da.
Yeah.
I'd call those guys in a second if I was ever in a pinch, and they'd be there. So
Sure. So you're kind of like, you're the social, cool, jock, funny nerd guy, right? You just had all the roles then on the team? Okay, nice. Good to know.
There's a reason I do radio, but there's a reason I'm not on TV. So, you got to play to your strengths. Like, you try to go to a bar in Lincoln and try to pick up a girl at bald, 330 pounds, and you got to be funny. I'm not there for the looks. I'm there to make you laugh and be like, oh, that guy's funny. A little sympathy make-out session. So, you gotta hone your skills.
Do you guys ever talk about, when you catch up with those guys, do you ever talk about that time in 1995 when you beat Mizzou 57-0?
It's come up. I mean, honestly, and offense if you want to, Tanner, I'm sorry, but
it's Tucker.
Mizzou at that time, they didn't factor into it till later. Pinkel was he there? I don't know if he was there yet, but you could tell they had something getting better. But at the times we were playing them, it was just like, hey, let's go. It was kind of like, you ever seen the movie Johnny Be Good?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, what are we going to do to get Vrzal in the game? Like, all right, let's go. Up 35-0 halftime, right? Vrzal, go in.
Who is the most fun guy to be around on the team?
Fun guy to be around. This will be a head scratcher for some Nebraska fans, but Christian, I have yet to have a bad time with Christian Peter.
Really?
He's one of the funniest dudes you'll ever meet. He used to get pissed off at me because we would go out to the bars in Lincoln in the off season, and I would wear some Birkenstocks, right?
Yeah.
For comfort. And he would look at me and just with this scowl, he'd be so pissed off. He'd be like, and he couldn't say my name right. He'd be like, Vrzal. He's like, what are you going to do if we get in a fight? He's like, you're going to try to kick him with your JC water walkers? He's like, what's going to happen here? And I was like, no, dude. And then he actually was a big shaper. He and Jason both were shaper and molders of my love for cheese pizza because they would swear up and down just how you eat cheese pizza. You let it get to room temperature. You can't hide anything in a cheese pizza. We taste your crust. We taste your sauce. We taste it all. You can't run away from a cheese pizza. So until you can make a cheese pizza, you can't make pizza. So he's just a fantastic human being. I know he got drugged through the mud. There was some things that he took the fall for that he didn't do, and so he taught me a lot about life. And I'm still lucky to have him. Still lucky to get the chance to talk to him every now and then.
What would you say that one of the biggest reasons Nebraska was so dominant in the 90s?
We were dominant in the 90s for a plethora of reasons. One of the things that Nebraska was always good at was being at the cutting edge of things. And when you saw Nebraska kind of fall off from being a leader in things, that's when their play on the field fell off. But we had a nutritionist named Dave Ellis before a lot of teams even had training tables. And we had the circuit training that all these guys are going through right now. We were doing that because they wanted to do that. You also had a group of guys that I call it the land of misfit toys. Some guys laugh at that, but Tommy Frazier, nobody wanted him to play quarterback. They wanted him to play running back or receiver. And T.O. was like, well, you're going to be a quarterback for us. Jared Tomich, another guy that I've mentioned before, was told he wasn't smart enough to play college football. Well, they bring him in, they prop 48 him, they get his grades right, they get him through there. Jason and Christian Peter were hockey guys. Grant Wistrom, Michigan wanted him to possibly play tight end.
Really?
Aaron Taylor out of the state of Texas was too short to be a lineman in Texas. So you had all these guys that kind of got together. Phil Ellis, a teammate of mine, was a 220-pound middle linebacker. Still the best linebacker I've ever seen. Better than Rude, better than anybody you've seen there in 20 years. But you had all these guys that just loved the game of football. They just wanted to play. They just wanted to be great. And don't get me wrong, we had some freaks. Like Lawrence Phillips, freak.
Yeah.
Like you just saw that dude, you're like, we're good. You're way better than all of us. So you had this kind of group of dudes that worked really hard together. We fought like brothers do, but you got along, and you knew that everybody was there to win on Saturday, and we held each other to a standard. When we thought preparation was slipping, no coach had to come say something. The team handled it all. So you get this kind of perfect storm of imperfection and dudes at the position they want to play, not where somebody wanted to put them. And then you get out there and you start winning, and you're like, man, we are really good. Sprinkle in Turman and his brother-in-law now, John Vedral, who's a great buddy of mine, played wingback from Gregory, South Dakota. The guy was an absolute freaking psychopath, but he was 5'10", maybe 200 pounds, and his sole mission in life on the football field was to try to kill you. And so you get enough dudes out there that just want to go play hard, you're going to win. It works at every level of football.
Yeah, I remember you telling me a story. Is it you or Terman? I think was telling me a story about Vrzal. There was some player where his job was just to like pull and just smoke someone on the blind side. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, that was a play that they put in for Colorado. Colorado had a nose guard named Kerry Hicks.
Yeah,
and Kerry Hicks was way good. And they played an odd man front, meaning the center was covered and both tackles were covered. So they called it wham, right? So they would bring the wing back in motion. Okay, so you got a 200-pound wing back, 275-pound nose guard. The center's job was to not even touch the nose guard. Don't even touch him. Just dodge him and try to get up the field and get a linebacker. Meanwhile, the wingback has a 15-yard full-bore head of steam from going in motion, and he's just going to just wham the nose guard. So if you think about that, you got to have somebody half crazy to say, I'm going to go throw my 200 pounds at this 275-pound guy. Vrzal, Cluster Johnson would knock that kid senseless, and by the end of the game, Kerry Hicks had no clue where he was going to get hit from. And that guy was an All-American. Like, he was good. And Osborne was just like, we're going to beat him, and we're going to make him look silly. And when you got guys like Cluster and John, they're like, yeah, I'll go in motion and sprint 15 yards and try to knock that guy's head off, you bet.
So kind of going off the way that Nebraska was so dominant in the 90s, what's something that you think that Nebraska needs to improve on to be dominant once again?
I think the biggest shift for Nebraska right now, Tanner, is its attitude. You know, if you look at Nebraska's roster, they have talented kids. But, you know, one of my favorite movies is A Bronx Tale, where Robert De Niro says there's nothing worse in life than wasted talent.
Yeah.
And I think Nebraska has wasted a lot of talent. I think it's undisciplined. I think that the stories that I get now about how the kids were full-blown running the operation up there is just scary to death for me, because no 18 to 22-year-old kid needs to be in charge of anything. They're not even in charge of themselves.
Right.
So to hear some of the privileges that they had at Nebraska before earning them was tough to hear. But with Frost in there and his crew, I mean, people will say, oh, no position safe. Literally, no position is safe. Like, I have $100 bet with another guy that one of the starters on the offensive line will not start next year. And I feel perfectly confident in that bet. But that will be what's changed the most, is discipline. You know, those guys, they just need to know what discipline means, what expectation means, what accountability means, and then going out and just playing a wonderful game. I love the game of football. Baseball is my true love. Football is my mistress. Like, I just to go out and operate it with a team, when your success is relying on 10 other people, you'll never know what life is like until you're in that spot, because that's when you know if you can function in society. And the great part is it's people from every different background and upbringing. You got rich kids, you got poor kids, you got black kids, you got white kids, you got Hispanic kids. It's awesome. And that's why it is my mistress. But those kind of things are what Frost and crew will bring back to Nebraska. And then you tie it back into what the state is about. You know, the state is a hard-working state. Well, the football team wasn't hard-working for a long time. They thought they were working hard. You know, you get told you're working hard. Everybody's like, yeah, I'm working hard. When you go through a workout, you can't finish that workout because your insides are trying to be your outsides. Now you're working hard. When you can't eat before you work out, now you know what a workout is.
You send 3 kids to the hospital, that's a pretty good workout.
Yeah.
Well. Them dudes, allegedly, them dudes may have had a little bit too much fun the night before the workouts. That's dumb.
I also heard that. So as a former walk-on yourself, what do you think of Scott Frost focusing on like building up the walk-on program, especially with like in-state kids?
It's something near and dear to my heart, of course, but all those kids ask, you know, and there's a lot of small towns. My family is from up in northeast Nebraska, a little small community in Newman Grove. My father actually had the chance to walk on. Real quick sidebar story, but my dad had a chance to walk on, so he did. He had been there about the time Johnny Rogers was. My dad led the state in rushing, and they found out in his physical that he had scoliosis in his spine, and so they couldn't clear him. George Sullivan, who's the head trainer, said, hey, if you get hit once, you're going to be paralyzed. So my dad hung up the cleats. So when I went up there and walked on, and we're going through the physical, George Sullivan's still the trainer, and I walk in there and he goes, Vrzal. I was like, yeah. He goes, your dad Terry? I was like, yeah. He goes, bend over and grab your ankles. I was like, whoa. Pump the brakes here, old man. Like, what are you talking about? And one of the younger trainers like, your dad had scoliosis. We're checking to see if you have it. I was like, oh, okay good. All right, cool. So I did that. But to tie it back into the community is what Nebraska football is about. You know, from Hyannis to Sterling, everybody's got to be on the same page. And another thing that I didn't add to Tanner's point from before, what will make Nebraska great again? I've never been a part of an organization where, from the guy that washed the jocks to the lady to the head coach, everybody, the only thing we talked about was winning a national championship and being unbelievable. And in any spread, in any setup, it's always the best. You know, I deal with it in my everyday life at Paisans. I got people that half-ass stuff, and we just get rid of them because I don't need somebody trying to halfway make a great pie. I want to make a great pie every time we put one out.
Yeah.
So it was a cool thing about it, and that's another thing that I've learned from my experience of it. But yeah, anytime you can get a homegrown kid that just give me a shot.
Yeah.
Just give me a shot, coach.
Who is the most competitive guy on the team, do you think?
Okay, I'm going to divide this into two categories.
Okay.
Most competitive day in, day out is probably Tommy Frazier. Tommy did not like losing at anything, ever. And if you thought you beat him at something, man, he would yip and run his mouth just to show you that he didn't. On game day, maybe this is more psychopath, but on game day, Terry Keneally and Aaron Taylor were two of the bigger psychos I had ever run across in my life. Terry Keneally was the nicest guy you'll ever meet. He's a great dude. See him, he comes and gets some pizzas at Paisans. You put a helmet on that guy, he would just as soon punch you in the face than talk to you. But take the helmet off, it's like, hey, you know, he did it in practice. He would destroy me. And then we'd both go get a drink of water because we subbed out at the same time. He'd take his helmet up and, hey, Verse, how's it going, bud? I'm like, you just called me a cocksucker like 3 seconds ago. Like, what are you doing? He's like, hey, it was on the field, bud. You know, that's how it goes. Yeah. Like, all right.
Yeah.
It's like a light switch. I got one last question for you. It's a pretty good one. I've been wanting to ask you for a while.
Pretty good one if you do say so yourself.
Yeah, no, I'm a really good question asker. This one's really good, though. So what do we have to do to get a pizza named after us?
It goes many a direction.
Okay.
As you can see now with some of our expansion, we've got some new ones on there. So that you've had to have worked for me.
Okay.
So being a day one OG, I got 3 of my OGs on there.
Sure.
I've got teammates. I've got one guy that's a brother-in-law of a teammate, just out of spite to my teammate because he was just riding my ass about putting his piece on there. And then his brother-in-law said, well, I'd like one too. I'm like, you know what? You can have one too, country. We'll call yours a slice of country. So he's on there. So those would be 2 big ones. If you come up with something, I tell you what, you boys come up with something. Sorry, you young men come up with something.
Okay.
And we'll put it on as a pizza of the month. You can pick the month.
Oh, sweet.
And if it does well, then we'll add it to the menu.
All right, sounds good.
We'll Shark Tank.
Don't be getting me any like foo-foo-y toppings where I got to go.
No
way.
Something different.
It's gonna be in-house
what
stuff.
I got.
Yeah.
And do that.
I've got a pretty good idea already, but I'll workshop it. We'll get something going.
You got to think about it. Don't be telling me I need to import like some kind of salmon.
No.
Bullshit like that.
Thank you so much, Matt, for coming in.
Yeah, boys.
Appreciate it.
Call me Matt again. I will punch you in the head.
Big thanks to Matt Vrzal for coming on the podcast. Fellas, let's talk some football. RG3 making his comeback, got signed by the Baltimore Ravens. What do you fellas think about the Ravens quarterback situation?
There's going to be a really big push for knee doctors in Baltimore now, I think is what. So if you're a current knee doctor, you're in need of a job, go to Baltimore, set up shop. You're about to be rolling in business from RG3.
If I was Andrew Luck, I'd be looking out because the Baltimore Ravens are signing all the top picks from that draft. They got Trent Richardson. They got RG3. They're just making their way around town, walking fast, signing free agents, and then they're homebound.
I like that.
All right. Good point. So, are the Baltimore quarterbacks elite?
No.
All right, moving on. The Rams are looking pretty good.
The Rams are elite.
Yeah, the Rams are seriously scary good now. We talked about their defense a little bit last week. They just got Brandon Cooks. I originally was on board with them getting good players. I was like, you know what? They'll be pretty good. They'll be nice to see the Rams do well. I didn't think they're going to be really that good. So now, like I originally said, I want them to do well. I kind of want to see them win a Super Bowl. That was all talk. That I had no actual meaning behind that. And then they actually went out and were like, okay, Shane, yeah, we'll get good and win a Super Bowl for you. So now they got all the good players. And I'm very nervous that we have to play them this season.
They got tagged in your quote graphic, and they said, all right, fine. We're going to have to now.
Are you ditching the Cowboys this year if the Rams win the Super Bowl and becoming a Rams fan since they did all this for you?
Not a chance. I did not ask them to do this. I was speaking just for content. I wasn't actually being real about wanting them to do good. That's not on me. I did not sign a contract.
Noted.
I really like everything the Rams have done in the offseason, and I think everybody can agree that they like what the Rams have done in the offseason. With that being said, I think you still have... Oh, okay, Kieran does not. Kieran's, St. Louis guy, hates the Rams. They didn't make any of these moves when they were in St. Louis. Now they've gone to L.A. They've embraced the bright lights, big city. I think with all this being said, I think, the proof is still in the pudding. You have to put it together on the field because the team looks great on paper. But it really comes down to how they play. Jared Goff was incredible last year. Very good quarterback. They got him a lot of offensive weapons this year. So it's a little ludicrous to say that he could decline, but who knows? Maybe the league figures him out a little bit. Maybe the league figures out how to defend Todd Gurley after seeing last season how he was brought into Sean McVay's system. So I think there's still a lot of questions with the Los Angeles Rams. I wouldn't go and crown them favorites in the NFC yet. I think it's still the Eagles. I think the Packers are greatly improved. The New Orleans Saints are coming off a season where, let's face it, they probably should have been playing in the NFC Championship game. The Vikings, who actually did play in that game, still very good. So the NFC in general is very tough. The Rams still have a long road ahead of them. I don't see as many teams beating Goff this year, and I think the Rams are in for a really, really terrific season this year.
Yeah, I think most teams have really given up on beating Goff for the most part.
I know the Royals specifically have given up on beating Goff.
Yeah, the Royals gave up on beating Goff a long time ago. They don't even play Goff, so
They're an anti-beating Goff team.
yeah, they love Jared Goff, so they don't want anyone to beat Goff.
They don't want anybody in the organization especially in the locker room. They don't want anybody in the locker room beating Goff. They just are super against it.
I want, with the Cowboys defensive line though, they're gonna pound Goff all day. So you're gonna get used to watch the Cowboys defensive line beating Goff all season.
That's a good note to end on right there. We're going to go ahead and switch to the NBA playoffs. Here's the teams that have clinched. The East is completely clinched. No one else can make the playoffs, but the seeding is still to be determined. Toronto Raptors, Boston Celtics, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and Jordan Clarkson, Philadelphia 76ers, the Indiana Pacers, the Miami Heat, Washington Wizards, and the Milwaukee Bucks. And in the West, only 4 teams have clinched. A little tighter race, obviously, which we all knew coming into the season. Houston Rockets, Golden State Warriors, Portland Trail Blazers, and the Utah Jazz.
What, the Golden State Warriors made it? What?
Yeah, they made it again.
Who would have thunk? Who'd have thunk?
Now, they got a lot of injuries, though.
This year's NBA playoffs is a lot different from years past, and I'm excited about that because usually it's just LeBron James going up almost what feels like 1 versus 5 in the final sometimes when he plays against the Warriors. This year, we've got some legitimate competition, and I'm excited for it. There's young teams in the playoffs. I mean, they're feeling their bag right now. Oh, no, they're in their bag right now. Yeah, the whole city of Philadelphia is in their bag. The Sixers clinched the playoffs, and they're going to have home court advantage, it looks like, for at least the first round of the playoffs. You see teams like Utah, whose best player is now a rookie, which is almost unfathomable in the NBA today when teams go out and they get, all the big-name free agents and rookies come in, and they usually struggle a little bit. Donovan Mitchell's taken over. He's made that team great. He's my pick for Rookie of the Year over Ben Simmons. And I'm just really excited for the playoffs in general. I think the last few games here in the regular season, though, in the West are going to be absolutely insane because 5 through 10, and actually you can throw Utah in there. They've already clinched, but 4 through 10 has 3 games difference between that 4th team and that 10th team. And there's a lot of games where they play each other. So I think the end of the regular season might be even better than maybe the first few rounds of the NBA playoffs. But we'll see. We'll see who makes it, and I'm excited to see how it plays out. I know I'm the only NBA guy here, but I mean, this is unprecedented, really, for this many NBA teams to feel like they have a chance now in the postseason.
I'm a Jordan Clarkson fan.
Jordan Clarkson will be attending the postseason and probably staying in it for a long time.
Tucker and I decided to take this NBA season off. We said we're just going to focus on ourselves.
On Jordan Clarkson.
We're going to focus on Jordan Clarkson, and then we'll be back next year in full force.
Before the season started, Kieran and Tucker decided that they were going to take this leave of absence. I think Kieran, who was can we say former Warriors fan, or are you still a Warriors fan? Still a Warriors fan. I think he saw the season that was coming from both the Warriors and the Rockets. He kind of predetermined it. He said, you know what? I'm going to take this year off. I'm just going to let the Warriors, have a little bit of a down year by their standards, and come next season, you'll probably pick it right back up, right?
Really, I took the season off because the NBA is like a reality TV show, and it's like all drama and stuff like that, and I gave up drama in high school. So I'm just like, I'm going to take this year off, let my drama meter fall all the way to the bottom, focus on hockey, focus on the NFL, and then next year, be ready to fill the drama meter right back up.
Toby, I do want to hear your take on this. We're talking about Boston a little bit. Kyrie is now out for the rest of the season, including the playoffs. I know, being a Celtics fan myself, I've given up a little bit. I don't really know how we're going to make it through the playoffs. We can make it through the first round maybe, but I don't see us making any farther than that. What do you think?
Yeah, no Kyrie's going to make it wicked hard. It's going to be wicked hard to win.
I think for Lent, I think my teams gave up disappointing Toby. And now that Easter happened and Lent's over, I think we're right back to square one. Obviously a devastating blow for the Celtics. We have some really capable guys. Terry Rozier is about as good of a backup point guard as you can hope for. In games that he starts, he averages 19 points per game. But there's just something about the Eastern Conference where the whole season can play out poorly for whatever team LeBron James is on. Everything can look like it's going downhill, and just at the last minute, LeBron James gets just the little room that he needs, and he'll probably make his way through the East again. As long as, Toronto plays like they do in the regular season. They've never performed in the postseason, so I don't know why I would expect that to change, but I think for Boston, you're hoping that you can beat the Wizards, who gave you a run for your money last year, when we had Isaiah Thomas, who were the number 1 overall seed in the Eastern Conference. They gave us a run for our money last year. We won in Game 7 with Kelly Olynyk's heroics. And this year, you get by Washington, who now has John Wall. This is not a 7 seed when John Wall's healthy. This is probably a 4 or 5 seed in the East when John Wall's healthy. So you have to squeak by them, squeak by a really good defensive Miami team, or Milwaukee, who has Giannis, one of the best young players in the NBA. And then you'll have to play LeBron James, Cleveland Cavaliers. So it's unfortunate the way it shaped out this year for the Celtics, and I'm just really ready as a Celtics fan to get on to next year with Kyrie, Gordon, improved Tatum, improved Jaylen Brown, and next year, Celtics year, calling it.
Only a couple games left in the NHL season. Best playoffs in sports. There, I said it. Stanley Cup playoffs. We got some teams that have clinched in the Western Conference. You have Nashville. You have Winnipeg, Minnesota, the Vegas Golden Knights making their first appearance in the playoffs, the San Jose Sharks, the Anaheim Ducks, and the LA Kings. That last wildcard spot still up for grabs. And the Eastern Conference, it's a little flip-flop from the NBA. The Eastern Conference is more up for grabs in the NHL than the Western Conference is. You only have the Capitals, the Penguins, the Bruins, the Lightning, and the Leafs in the playoffs right now. So your teams, Shane, the Devils, you said it's the Devils' year, it's still up in the air if they're going to make the playoffs. They can clinch tonight, though.
Yeah, I have all faith in the Devils right now. Taylor Hall, Nico Hischier, like I said, I think they're the best duo in hockey right now. I'll say it. I'll go ahead and say it. They're the best duo in hockey right now.
Hot take.
Yeah, that's a hot take. Whatever. I agree. I stand by it. They're just electric on the ice together. I think they clinch tonight. They go to the playoffs. This is the movie storyline everyone's looking for in sports. This team went from, I think, what were they, worst in the NHL last year, second worst maybe, to all the way just barely making the playoffs now in the wild card spot. We're going to roll through. We're going to get some dicey wins. It'll be a little close, I'm pretty sure. But we are going to win the Stanley Cup final in 6 games, so be on the lookout for that.
Let's go around the horn. Toby, what do you think about the Sharks?
we're floundering a little bit going into the postseason. No pun intended, because they're big fish. But we've got to hold off the Kings. We've got to hold off the Ducks. They're making a big push. You don't want to be one of those wild card teams who has to play the Predators first. Don't want to fall to that second wild card spot. I'm not as concerned if we fall to say the first wild card spot. We get to play Vegas. I think that's a winnable series. A team with no playoff experience as a unit. One thing that I found interesting this year is just looking at the standings and looking at all the games in the NHL this year. There hasn't been a whole lot of talk about the Winnipeg Jets, but quite the season by the Jets.
Yeah,
and they're a team that you forget about real easily because they're a newer team. They got moved from Atlanta just less than a decade ago.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, they've had absolutely no significance on the NHL at all. But this is a team that not a whole lot of people are talking about, and a team that's very capable in the postseason because of all the goal scoring that they have. I think that the Jets are a team that's certainly worth checking out. I agree with Shane. I think that the Devils, a team that has a lot to prove, is certainly a team to watch. I'm still rolling with my guys. My Stanley Cup pick coming from the Eastern Conference, the Boston Bruins. I really like what they've got brewing up there, and I'm liking Bruins over Preds, 6-game Stanley Cup Finals.
Interesting, though. The Jets, this is their first 100-point season, and it just so happens that they're behind the Predators, who have 113 points.
Yeah.
So, KB, what do you think about the Blues?
It's difficult because they aren't entirely in control of their own destiny, and St. Louis teams seem to struggle in terms when they're not in control of their own destiny. They got 2 games left, and they're fighting Colorado for that last spot. Good news, bad news. Good news, the Avalanche tonight when we're recording that, so that's Thursday night, they're playing the Sharks. So for the first time in history, I'm probably going to be rooting for the Sharks. Unfortunate, I know. And then tomorrow night, so Friday, the Blues play the Blackhawks. The Blackhawks came from behind and beat the Blues on Wednesday night. But the Blackhawks aren't playing too hot, so in comparison, that should be a relatively easier game. And then it all comes down to Saturday night when the Blues play the Avalanche. I'm pretty nervous about it. St. Louis teams have historically gotten my hopes up and then subsequently let me down. But I'm ready to be hurt again. Let's do it.
What do you say this team is giving you the blues?
No, I'd say this team is giving me stomach ulcers.
That's fair. Now, the Predators are in a good spot right now. Lead the league with 113 points, like I said earlier. Only behind a team with 110 points, which is the Bruins. The Bruins do have a game in hand, so we're really a point ahead of the Bruins right now. So we need the Bruins to lose to the Panthers tonight, which as we're recording this, they're just in the first period, and the Panthers are up 1-0. So look at that. Already good. Predators up 1-0 on the Caps, NBC prime time. So, hey, we could clinch the President's Cup right here. But as you've seen for the Capitals, clinching the President's Cup doesn't mean you're going to win the Stanley Cup. So,
Caps here.
Yeah. So I think the Preds are in a good situation. They got a lot of young talent. They got a lot of production on the offensive side with people who they haven't really signed for offensive production. So they're getting offensive production where they haven't expected it. Tolvanen coming up from the KHL was a really big addition, especially on the power play. He's really just getting his legs under him right now, adjusting to the smaller ice, adjusting to NHL talent. But I think that the Preds will be fine. Whoever wins the second round of the Western Conference, whoever wins the Western Conference Championship is going to be your Stanley Cup champion. I'm going to stand by that, and I'm going to think it's going to be the Nashville Predators.
Yeah, and the good thing about the Predators winning is that then Blackhawks fans can stop saying that Patrick Kane's the only Predator who ever wins in the NHL playoffs.
That's true.
So I think, some positives for all of our teams winning the Cup, except for the Blue. I don't think you guys are going to make it. I'm sorry. But for the rest of us, there's a lot to look forward to in the playoffs. The Sharks, we always disappoint in the postseason. But, hey, you get to see them 4 more games at a minimum.
That's true.
I told you guys, I predicted it, and so far it looks like it'll come true. I predicted the Blues would stumble into the playoffs and then lose in the first or second round, and that's looking like it's going to come true. So
now this is very exciting. If the Blues do stumble in at that second wild card spot, and they play the Predators.
Yeah,
maybe some Facebook Live. Put them on the hot seat. Have you guys watched games together?
We'll still be here for the first round, won't we?
We sure will.
Yeah, Tuck and I watch games together all the time because I kind of like the Predators and he kind of likes the Blues. So we watch games together often.
That's so cute.
Yeah.
Any final words?
As we were filming today, Tim Tebow got his first at-bat in Double-A ball, mashed a 3-run home run. So I'm thinking it's time to bring him up to Triple-A. This difficulty is set a little bit too low. Got to move him up to professional difficulty. He's playing on rookie mode right now. He's inching closer and closer each day. Very pro Tim Tebow podcast.
My final word, I don't think Akon should have taken any of the blame. Wasn't his fault. Why was she in a 21 and over club, they say? Why doesn't anybody want to take blame?
Her daddy should never have let her out that young.
They just quote the song. That'll do it. Check out the links in our description for the products we mentioned earlier in the episode. If you have any suggestions of what products you want featured, hit us up. Let us know. Like us on Facebook, Nosebleed Knowledge. Follow us on Twitter @NosebleedsKnow. We'll see ya.